All right, good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday morning edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician, and just about every day I have people come into my shop and say, I'm going to buy a new car. I go, great, what you going to buy? And he said, well, I got a car that's 4 years old down the street. It's a 2013, 14, something like that, and I want to buy it. It's got 75,000 miles on it, and I say, wonderful. Before you buy it, please let me look at it. And they go, well, that's a great idea. And then I see him 3 days later, and I said, did you buy the car? He said, yeah, I bought the car. Why didn't you let me look at it? Well, you were going to charge $150 to look at it, and I had their service center look at it, and they charged me nothing. I said, great, wonderful. How's your car doing? Oh, no problem whatsoever. That's fantastic. You know, it's running just like it's supposed to. Then I see him about a month later. Check engine light. Well, not even a month later. I see him about a week later. Check engine lights on. The car is having problems. They've taken it to the shop, they've taken it by the parts store, and they said, you got this code and that code and this code and that code. And they said, the customer said it was great, running great till they put gas in it and drove it about 3 days. And then that's when the light came on. And here's what I'm going to let you know, and I try to tell people this all the time, before you purchase any used car. I don't care if it has no warranty on it. Let's put it that way. If you're buying a car as is, there's no warranty, written or expressed whatsoever, and you'll see it right on the side of the car, warranty or no warranty. If there's no warranty, you buy it as is. Once you buy that car, you're stuck with it. You know, no matter what happens, you know, if the engine blows up the next day, it's yours. It's your problem, not theirs. So before you purchase a car, please pay someone, I'm not going to say just someone, pay some shop that knows what they're doing, that does drivability diagnostics. That's someone that knows how to read a scanner. Someone that understands what those numbers on the scanner mean. Not just codes, but numbers, what they mean, what the long-term and short. Here's a real quick question. Ask the guy what the difference is between long-term and short-term fuel trim. If he can't answer that question off the top of his head like that, you don't have a diagnostic repair individual in front of you you're talking to. You have someone that changes parts. I know that sounds very hard to say, but it's a fact. I have people, I ask them all the time, work for me. Okay, tell me what this means. What's this mean? What's this mean? And it's a little pop test I do to my employees, and sometimes they pass and sometimes they don't. I'm all the time asking, what does long-term fuel trim mean? What does short-term fuel trim mean? When you add them together, what's it supposed to be? What's the system readiness monitors mean? What's it mean if the system readiness monitor hasn't passed? That's the question you need to be asking right now. Has all system readiness monitors passed on this vehicle? You will find out if you buy a car and there's no check engine light on it, you've got one a used car. You've got one in the background waiting to make the light come on. A lot of times these readiness monitors will not run, especially evaporative emission codes, which are some of the hardest ones to diagnose and can be rather expensive. They will not run those tests unless it's 3/4 of a tank, you know, or less. Cannot have a full tank of gas in it, and it can't have an empty tank in it. So if the gas gauge is below 1/4 of a tank or above 3/4 of a tank, it'll never run the test. And I've seen cars at used car lots be there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally they get sold. And I say, did the guy buy it? Did you know they had a check engine light? And check engine light never came on. Why is that? Never put more than 1/4 of a tank of gas in it. That's why the light never came on. So here's what I'm trying to say. The used car lots have figured out how to sell cars. That's their job. Your job is to make sure if you're going to buy a used car that it's the best bargain, best bang for your buck. It costs between $150 to $250 at shops, reputable drivability diagnostic shops, to go from stem to stern on your car, to go from headlights to taillights, finding out everything from a Carfax readings on it to everything about this vehicle, whether there's recalls, whether there's technical service bulletins that need to be brought to your attention, whether there's, when I said recalls, things that need to be done under the manufacturer. Because if there's recalls, those things need to be done before you purchase the car. I'm not making this up. It's not me. They've got laws out there that says if a used car lot is selling a car and there's factory recalls on it, their job is to make sure they're done before you purchase it. So that's one of the things we do. It takes about 1.5 to 2 hours to go through a car from stem to stern, like I'm talking about, from headlights to taillights, and checking everything else out in between. Here's one of the things we do for customers before. If you're interested in buying a car, find the car that you're interested in. I like this car. You've driven it. You've driven a bunch of cars, and this is the one you like. You've done your little background checking on it, and you say it's driven by a little old lady to church on Sundays and Wednesday nights, and the car looks wonderful. It's got low mileage. It's 10 years old. Only got 35,000 miles on it, and you think you got a great deal, and you may have a great deal. You may have the best thing in the world. But more often you've got someone's headaches that you're not aware of, and you're going to find out if you buy that. So here's what I suggest. You take it to a shop. It doesn't have to be James Auto Center. It can be a shop of your choosing, one that you trust, one you've been dealing with in the past with your other vehicles, and say, hey, I need my car checked out. Now, a lot of people buying cars think that shop owners, out of the goodness of their heart, should check your car out from stem to stern, spend an hour and a half, and say, have a nice day. Well, in reality, it's not that way. It doesn't happen because we have to feed our employees as well. They have to make a living and take care of their kids. So we work on what we do. If you want a pre-buy inspection, it's worth what you pay for it. If it's a $150 value, you're going to get that. Plus, a lot of times, if you talk to the people about buying the car, you say, look, I want to have my guy check it out. And he may charge me $150. If I buy this car, will you take that off the bill? Now, I don't know any used car lot that won't do that. I've never met one in the years I've been doing this that won't take the charges off the car if you decide to buy the car. Normally, this is what we find. We'll get the car into our shop. There's no check engine lights. We'll go for a ride with the customer. It drives good, seems fine. All the lines on the car look good, like there's not been any wrecks. The paint matches. We walk around the car with the customer, and I said, basically, this car looks like a good car if I don't see anything obvious. I said, this might be a good car to check out. I don't see anything that's glaring at me, when we drove it or what I'm seeing. I'll grab a scanner while you're there. And before I do anything more, we'll put a scanner into it and we'll go to OBD2, that's Onboard Diagnostics, second generation, to the generic module. That's the thing that any auto repair shop has generic. Doesn't have to be vehicle specific, generic. And see if the system readiness monitors have run. If the answer is yes, all system readiness monitors have run, this is wonderful. That means there's no codes hiding in there or fixing to hide. But just about every time I see one of these come from a car lot over there, they've got system readiness monitors not completed. And normally they're catalytic converter, oxygen sensor, EGR, and O2 sensors. Those four right there. Oh, and I forgot, EVAP. Now there's only 8 systems in a car that it has to look at. There's 8 areas. 8 areas it's looking at. And you got more than half of them hadn't run their tests. And why is that? Because they've cleared the code. They haven't driven it 2 key cycles, warm-up cycles, and it hasn't cocked the trigger or set the light. Or if it has cocked the trigger and set the light, they keep erasing the code before you see it. Now, would used car lots do that? Of course they'll do that. I mean, they're in the business of selling used cars, not fixing used cars. They're in the business, and I'm not trying to be mean or derogatory towards any individual or any type of company. That's their job. Their job is to sell cars. Are they being not exactly truthful on it? Let the buyer beware. That's why I'm bringing you this show right now. Yes, you're going to be buying a car. I don't care if it's from your neighbor. Those are the worst ones. I see that all the time. Guy came into me, good customer of mine about 2 years ago. It was on a Saturday. We're not open on Saturdays. His neighbor is going overseas to Europe. Got a nice, beautiful red truck. Looks good on the outside. He drives it. It seems good. No check engine light on it. He decides to buy it because the neighbor is leaving Monday morning bright and early to go overseas. So he buys it for a really good price. Well, he brings the car over here for me to check out Monday morning after the neighbor's gone. He's already bought the deal. It's consummated the deal. It's his. It parks in my front driveway. It's leaking gasoline out of the gas tank. And the parking is right here in the front door, leaking. I say, sir, you've got a gas leak over here. Well, son of a gun, I do, don't I? I said, yes, sir, you do. We put it on the rack. That car came from the Great White North. It looked so rusty underneath there. The gas tank, we could actually poke a hole. When it was all said and done, we pulled everything apart. The top of the gas tank, you could poke a hole in with your finger. That's how rusty it was. This car, if someone had just spent 15 minutes looking at it, did a cursory walk around, they wouldn't have bought it. Because as soon as I walked around the car, I said, too many red flags. I mean, it didn't pass the system readiness monitors, the check engine light was off, but none of the monitors would run except for comprehensive and misfire. Everything else had been cleared. The guy had been clearing the codes for it, trying to sell the car. And that's exactly what he did. He sold the car with no check engine light up, because people hate the dreaded check engine light. They see it when it comes on, that's normal, but it's supposed to go out. And if it does, great. But remember, just because the light's not on doesn't mean there's not a problem. I see it all the time. Lights are not on. You know, the light's not on, but you know, or I should say the lights are on, but no one's home. But in that case right there, the lights are not on, but there's something wrong inside the car, and it's not going to set until someone drives it 2 drive cycles, you know, warm-up cycles, and or it's more than a quarter of a tank of gas in it, or less than 3/4 tank of gas. If those conditions aren't met, it's not going to run the system readiness monitors. If you can't remember anything from this conversation, if you go to get a car looked at to buy, take it to your shop, ask them to run the system readiness monitors. If the system readiness monitors have not all been completed, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure this out. It's real easy. Hit the button. Readiness monitors complete. Yes, no. If they've all completed and run, you at least know you don't have anything waiting for you in the sidelines. You know, the light's not going to pop out on it. Now, there's no guarantee the light still may pop on, but normally we don't see that. If we have a car that comes in here and all the readiness monitors have run, and it's been 4,000 miles since the last, we can look at the scanner and tell how long it's been since they've cleared the code on it. If we see that, then we know there's nothing really lurking around there. But if we get it and the system readiness monitors are not run, or we see number of miles traveled since clearing the diagnostic code 2 miles, we know we've got a problem in there. And that's why it's so beneficial to you. Before you purchase a car, you have it looked at by a professional that knows what they're doing. Are you going to get it done for free? I doubt it. If you do get it done for free, it's worth exactly what you pay for it. Nothing. That's right. I mean, honest. Do you go to a doctor and get a physical for free? I don't think so. Not unless your father's a doctor. Maybe that'll work for you, or your husband's a doctor. But when you go to a professional, whether it's a CPA, a doctor, a lawyer, maybe the minister doesn't charge you. But the point being is, when you go to someone that does this for a living, expect to pay for their professional services, and they'll give you the best job. You're paying for a job, and they're going to give you the most complete information you can. When someone brings me a car, I look at the car, I hand them the information, not the person they're trying to buy it from. I could care less of the person who's trying to sell it. I want the customer who's wanting to buy this car. Here's everything I know about this car. Yeah, it's a good car. No, it's a piece of, it ain't worth buying. Stay away from this car. And we'll explain to you in plain, easy, simple to understand language why you shouldn't buy this vehicle. Or if you do decide to buy this vehicle, what to get prepared for. What's going to be lurking in the background. You may have a code like a P00 something. If you see that code, you better find out before you buy it, because it may require another engine. Really, James? From a code, you can tell that? Yeah, if you get a P0012, P0016, P0018, P0014, any of those P00 numbers over there, and you got a variable valve time engine, you may have major engine work in the background that you will have no idea about until someone's able to put their finger on it. And that check engine light will be a darn good place to start, where you can look at the freeze frames and tell what caused it, when it caused it, and what the conditions were. Hey, this is James Morris. We're here every morning to help you get answers about your car, what's happening in our community, what's happening in Northwest Florida, and this is what we're here for. So if you got a car question, want to be a part of the show, give us a call at 850-763-0555, Monday through Friday from 6 to 6:30, right here on Fox 28 WPGX, and we'll be right back.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Rooter Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, welcome back to our second half. This is our final half for the day. I mean, this show flies over so fast, so quick, it's not funny. But we talked about scanners, getting your car checked out before you purchase the vehicle. Well, say you want a car and you've already purchased it. My wife said, what about pre and post scans on car repair work? And I said, that's a very good idea. Is that what you said, Emery? Pre and post scans? You want to know about how that works?
Yeah. How do you know that you fixed a car?
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, it's a system readiness monitor. Say you come in, customer comes in and says, I've got a catalytic converter problem. Oh, I say, why do you say that? Well, I keep getting a PO420 and a PO430, and they keep telling me a catalytic converter inefficiency. And I said, well, that's a pretty good sign you may have a problem. So we'll take a look at it, and we'll do some tests on it, and we'll run the test on it and come to a conclusion, yes, you have bad catalytic converters or whatever the case may be. Well, that's great, but how do you know if you've got it completely fixed before you give it back to the customer? Well, first, whatever the part is faulty, or if there is a faulty part. Sometimes there's not a faulty part. Sometimes it's just other things that cause catalytic converter codes. But say that it is definitely a bad catalytic converter, and you change the catalytic converter. Now, you're going to give it back to the customer without running the system readiness monitors. If you do, there's an open invitation to having an upset and dissatisfied customer, because if the because in order to run the catalytic converter tests, there's lots of other things it's got to look at. It's got to look at the oxygen sensors. It's got to look at the EGR. It's got to look at those things. And they have to work exactly like they're supposed to do in order to make the catalytic converter run its test. The catalytic converter, if someone had asked me 2 months ago, will a catalytic converter test run before oxygen sensor tests are completed? I would say no, they can't do that. Well, I have found out since that time, yes, the catalytic converter will run a test and it will pass without the oxygen sensors even passing. I didn't think it was possible, but it has happened, and I have seen it happen. Did it on a Mini Cooper about 3 weeks ago. Had bad air-fuel ratio sensor, oxygen sensor, for those out there that don't know what an air-fuel ratio sensor is. But they're a little bit glorified oxygen sensor, very expensive on a Mini Cooper. And what the problem was, the car wouldn't, it had a bad oxygen sensor, of course. Then it had problems with the catalytic converter, wouldn't pass its test, and the oxygen sensor, of course, didn't pass its test because they were bad. And I said, okay, let me go put another oxygen air-fuel ratio sensor in here and go drive it. So I put an air-fuel ratio sensor in it, and I start driving it. I go up 231, come down Star Avenue, and I'm waiting for all the monitors to run. And I look over there, and the catalytic converter's passed its test, but the oxygen sensors haven't. I went, whoa. I have never seen that before. Oxygen sensors have not run their system readiness monitors, but the catalytic converter has passed its test. What are the odds are that there's nothing wrong with the oxygen sensors if the catalytic converter passes test? The odds are there's not a dadgum thing wrong with the oxygen sensors because the catalytic converter is passed. If the oxygen sensors weren't working right, there's the things that monitor the catalytic converter. If they weren't working correctly, you would have never have passed the catalytic converter test. But it kept looking at it for all this length of time here to pass the catalytic converter test. So once I changed the oxygen sensor and got it where it worked like it was supposed to, the catalyst ran the monitors on it and said, hey, it's working great. Now let me pass the oxygen sensor test. It took 2 days before that oxygen sensor test would pass. I told the customer, I said, look, it's passed everything best I can tell. Go ahead and take your car. I've driven the car. It runs great. There's no codes coming up. The system readiness monitors have not run for the oxygen sensors. The CAT's run. I mean, a CAT has run. The O2 has not run, and neither has the evaporative emission system. It hasn't run, which is usually the last. Normally, it's the evap, and normally evap is the last thing to complete, and the catalytic converter is right before that. But in this case, the last one that's going to run, it looks like it's going to be the O2 sensor. If someone had asked me that a few weeks ago, I'd said it can't happen. But if your catalytic converter passes, there's nothing wrong with your O2 sensors. That's why I said take the car. I don't think there's anything wrong with the oxygen sensors. I think they're working fine now because your catalytic converter passed. Remember, when they're looking at the when they're looking at the oxygen sensors, we're looking at the oxygen sensors, making sure they work, and the heaters in the oxygen sensors. That's right, oxygen sensors have heaters. That's why they're 4-wire oxygen sensors. When they first came out, they were 1-wire. Then it went to 2-wire. Then it went to 3-wire. Now they're 4-wire. 4 wires have been out for a long time. They've been out since OBD1. But the heated oxygen sensors get that oxygen sensor as hot as it can get real quick. It'll raise it from around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit without an oxygen sensor in it, without a heater in it, to around 1,800 degrees with a heater in it, just like that. And that's what it has to do. It has to get it real hot to work like it's supposed to. If it doesn't see that heat, and it doesn't see the resistance. What it's looking for is the amount of amperage it takes to heat up that oxygen sensor. If it doesn't see the right feedback of heat going to of amperage, milliamps, that's going to say we got a problem there. And your car now, your oxygen sensor works. Don't get me wrong, your oxygen sensor will work. It's just not working right. It's not working as fast as it's supposed to. What happens is today's cars, to go into where the computer takes control of the engine, takes about 30 seconds. Whereas a few years ago, it took anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. And that 2 to 5 minutes belched out a lot of nasty black smoke or very rich carbon smoke that we don't need. So now when we fire a car up, there's no reason to let it warm up. There really was no reason even with the other ones in there. You just start the car up, and in 30 seconds, it goes from open loop where the computer's not in control of the fuel, it's just got a fixed value, to where, boom, it goes into closed loop where the computer is now in control of the fuel operation, the spark, the timing. It's under what we call fuel control. And when it gets under fuel control, life is good. That means we're going for that 14.7 to 1 stoichiometric fuel ratio, which is impossible to get. Because in a perfect world it'd be possible, but it's impossible to get 14.7 to 1 constantly because we're giving it gas, we're letting off on the gas, we're accelerating, we're decelerating, we're stopping, we're starting, and you're always going from rich to lean, rich to lean. That's why the oxygen sensor bounces from rich to lean, rich to lean. And it does it like 4 times per second, trying to give you that split the difference to get 14.7 to 1. That's what it's after. The main purpose of a car's computer is to save the catalytic converter. That's why your car's computer and your catalytic converter have an 8-year, 80,000-mile warranty from the manufacturer. So if you have a P0420 or a P0430 and your car is 7 years old, not quite 8, and it has 79,999 miles on it, pull that car by a wrecker service to your local dealership and have them check it out. Because if it's under 8 years or under 80,000 miles and you got a catalytic converter code P0420, P0430, you don't have to pay for it. Now, you may have to pay for the diagnostics. You may have to pay for the, you may have to. I'm not going to guarantee. I have no idea. Every manufacturer is a little different. But I will tell you this, they will fix it. And it's mandated by federal law that catalytic converter and that computer are covered for 8 years, 80,000 miles. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it. They can't, even if you buy a used car and you're not the original owner and it's less than 8 years, 80,000 miles on, and that catalytic converter or that computer it malfunctions where it's not capable of working correctly, it's covered under manufacturer warranty. I'm sure the manufacturers are not happy for me announcing that, but it's common knowledge. You can go Google, how long is my catalytic converter good for? How long is my computer good for? And in America, car, even if they're brought in from Europe, to come over 8 years, 80,000 miles. Catalytic converters, they're covered. Computers, covered. Now, I'm not saying all computers are covered for 8 years, 80,000 miles, because a lot of cars have several computers on their car. It's not uncommon to have over 100 processors on a car. Only one of them is covered for 8 years, 80,000 miles. And that is the powertrain control module, the PCM or ECM, whatever you want to call it, the computer that controls how the engine runs to affect the catalytic converter. That's the one we're talking about. That's the only computer they cover for 8 years, 80,000 miles. They don't cover the transmission control module. They don't cover the body control module. They don't recover any of the supplemental restraint module. None of those are covered for 8 years, 80,000 miles. Only the powertrain control module, which controls the amount of fuel and the ignition of the car and all these things right here, before it goes down the catalytic converter. Because remember, the number one job of a car's computer is to save the catalytic converter, no matter what it takes. If your car's got a big vacuum leak in it, it'll make things where you'll use more gas, but that catalytic converter won't get too hot. Or if your car is running too rich, it'll cut the gas down where it won't hardly get any down there at all, and that catalytic converter will not. As a matter of fact, if it gets too bad, it'll just shut the car off. It will. It'll shut the car off. You go, what the heck's wrong with this car? Fire it back up again in a minute or two. You drive down the road, shuts it back off again. I've seen those things happen. Remember, the number one job of a car's computer is to save the catalytic converter. I know I keep saying that over and over and over again, but it takes a lot to get it through people's heads sometimes about the importance of the car's computer. That check engine light that you put black tape over it, you may be destroying your catalytic converter, and it may be out of warranty. If you put black tape over one because you've got a bad EGR or a bad O2 sensor or bad O2 heaters, or let's see what else it calls it, even an evap problem like a bad purge valve or a bad vent valve, you could damage the catalytic converter by leaving that black tape on there and ignoring it. I have people come in there all the time. How long has that black tape been on that car? For the last 4 years. Why do you put it on there? Well, they told me there wasn't anything that's wrong with my car. I just could drive it like this. I kind of look at him and go, whoever told you that really needs to go back to school and learn a little bit more, learn a lot more about how cars work. That light means something. That means you're getting poor gas mileage. That's one thing. Second thing is that means you're polluting the air. That's the other thing. And the third thing is you may be killing your $800 to $1,200 catalytic converter, and some cars have 4 of those on there, catalytic converter. If your EGR doesn't work, bye-bye catalytic converter. If your O2 sensor don't work, bye-bye catalytic converter. These things are important. They really are, and too many people ignore them. Why they ignore them, I have no idea. I guess they were taught that just because the light's on doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong with it. I never was taught that. If I saw a red light or a yellow light, I want to know what it was. I have people driving around all the time with red lights on and yellow lights on, and they have no idea they're doing danger to themselves and to their family. They think a red light's just a red light. Well, red light means stop, don't drive the car. Yellow light means you can drive it, but you better be cautious about it. I got guys driving down there with red brake lights on. It's my emergency brake. How do you know it's your emergency brake? Well, I guess it's my emergency brake. Could be the fact that you're only stopping on 2 wheels. You ever thought about that? Didn't think about that. That red light will come on if you're only stopping on 2 wheels. It'll come on when you see the hydraulic problem. It'll come on when it sees an ABS problem that affects the hydraulics. There's a lot riding on your car, that people really don't understand, that need to understand about how these things work. If you got a car question, give us a call tomorrow morning, because this show is over. And we'll see you tomorrow morning right here on Fox 28 WPGX at 6 a.m. Bye-bye, everybody.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Rooter Plumbing.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.